in this kinematics, we are going to see what is the type of the movement. First one we will see what is the type of the movement. Second one, where is the location of the movement. Where is the location of the movement. Third one, what is the direction of the movement. Fourth one, what is the magnitude. What is the magnitude of the movement. What is the magnitude. So kinematics, the first one will see which type of movement it is. When we are doing one movement, whatever the movement, either shoulder flexion, extension, whatever, if we are doing one movement, type, which type of movement is there, and then location, where the movement is happening, and direction, in which direction it's happening, movement in which direction it's happening, and then magnitude means it's like, suppose if I do shoulder flexion, this is slow magnitude. If I do like this, fast, it's a fast activity. So magnitude, how much the movement is happening, how fast, what is the force of that movement, that is magnitude. Now, first point, types of the movements. In this first type is rotatory movement. Nothing but we can tell us it is like rotatory motion. This is rotatory motion. It is nothing but angular movement. It is nothing but angular motion or movement. So what is this rotatory movement means? Here it's very easy. Suppose take this is as example. This is our arm. This is our forearm. See here. This rigid bar is going to resemble like here humerus. So imagine this is our humerus, this is our elbow joint, this is forearm component, this is wrist joint, this is hand component. What is rotatory motion mean? Suppose, see here, rotatory motion, suppose now the position is like this 90 degree. Rotatory motion, a object or segment, see any object or segment. Here I am taking forearm segment. Okay, here I am taking forearm segment and wrist segment. Rotatory motion means an object or segment. Here I am taking segment, forearm and hand segment will rotate over a fixed axis. Suppose here elbow joint is my axis, it is a fixed axis. This forearm component and hand component will move over a fixed elbow axis. See, like this is going to move. This is rotatory movement. This is rotatory movement or angular movement. So that is the point. What is rotatory motion means? Here a segment or object will move over a fixed axis in angular direction. That is rotatory movement. In this rotatory movement, the segments, forearm segments and hand segments will move in angular motion. That is rotatory movement. We will see second movement. So in that second movement is translatory motion. So this is a translatory motion. In this so this is also called as linear motion. In this translation motion, what will happen? An object or segment, it will move in same distance, same time, in same line. So only the point is translatory motion means the movement will happen in same line. The object or segment which will move in same line, in same time and same distance. Here is the example. So here we are having arm component, this is forearm component, this is hand component. To reach the glass, so here this segment has to move in this direction. To reach the glass, this segment has to move in this direction. Suppose if I have this, now you see this arm component, forearm component, hand component. To reach this, here I have to move my forearm and hand component. This is nothing but translatory motion, linear motion, also called as linear translatory. The movement is happening in same line, and see this forearm and hand will move together same time and same distance to catch this. So that is the translatory motion. In this translatory motion, one more point is there, that is nothing but rotatory motion. What it is? Suppose if I am holding this. If I am holding this in this translated motion, in this I am holding this. So here also the movement of forearm and hand segment is happening through the rotation of the elbow, linear rotation of the elbow, and arm component which I have here, arm component, it is moving because of the rotation of the shoulder joint. So what's the point is to remember in this motion here translatorily, that means linear movement is happening. After that here this forearm and hand component are moving because of the elbow rotation, and this arm component is moving forward because of the shoulder rotation movement in this direction, shoulder rotation movement, shoulder rotation and forearm elbow rotation. Because of these two rotations here translatory linear motion is happening, that is translatory motion. Now we will see third movement in types of movements, that is curvilinear motion or movement. What is this curvilinear motion or movement means? Suppose when an object or segment will rotates on an axis, will rotates on fixed axis and move through the space, then we will say it is as curvilinear motion. See, for example, here one object is there, so now here one segment, forearm segment, see, forearm segment is moving, I hold like this, so this is our translatory movement. After this, see now curvilinear, when one object or segment which moves around a fixed axis, it rotates around a fixed axis and move in the space, if it moves in the space, then that movement is nothing but curvilinear movement, so here we will be having arm component, forearm component. So if the person is attempt to drink the water, he has to move in this direction, so that means here we have elbow axis. So a segment will rotate over a fixed axis, and here arm component is there, no, so here also it has to move. So a segment, here two segments has to move, segment has to rotate over a fixed axis and it has to move in the space, then this movement we can say it as a curvilinear motion. These are the types of the movements. Clear? Location of the movement. Second point, location of movement. See, what is this location of movement means? Where, on which surface the movement is happening, on which point the movement is happening, that is location of the movement. In this first one we need surface, on which surface movement is happening and on which point movement is happening. Here surfaces are nothing but planes, planes of the movement, and points are nothing but axis of the movement. So these are the locations of the movement. So that means it is going to give the information that where the movement is happening and which surface movement is happening and which point that movement is happening. That is location of the movement. So planes, first one transverse plane, second one sagittal plane, third one frontal plane, So these are the planes of the human body. Whatever these planes and axis are the imagination. It is like our imagination lines or planes to understand the movement location where the movement is happening. First one transverse plane. So transverse plane, it is like, suppose this is one human, this is my body. So this, suppose one transverse plane, it is going to cut my body into superior portion and inferior portion, complete transverse plane, complete. Best example to understand transverse plane, suppose if we are inside the water, if you stand up from the water, you imagine up to here you have water, so full front, back, side you will be having water. So up to here you are away from the water, remaining body inside the water. So that is nothing but transverse plane. It is going to divide the body into superior and inferior portions. That is transverse plane. Now sagittal plane. Sagittal plane means it is going to divide the body into right and left half. It is going to divide the body into right and left half. Suppose if one plane is going through, like if one plane is coming like this, so it is going to divide the body into this right half and this left half. This right half and this left half. It will be posterior also. It will be same. It will be here. This is right half. This is left half. So this is sagittal plane. It is going to divide the body into right and left parts. Now frontal plane. Frontal plane is going to divide the body into front and back. It is going to divide the body into front portion and back portion. How means, suppose one plane is there. If it is coming like this, if it is coming like this, see, imagine if it is coming like this, see, it is going to divide the body into anterior portion and posterior portion. Because of this frontal plane, the body is going to divide into anterior and posterior portions. Transverse means, imagine like transverse, this is superior, this is inferior. Sagittal, in this sagittal, remember this T. So it means it is going to divide the body into right and left. Remember T in the sagittal plane, right and left. And frontal plane, just remember F means front and back. So these are the planes of the human body. These are the imaginary planes of the human body. These planes are having different names. Horizontal plane, transverse plane also called as horizontal plane. Transverse plane also called as horizontal plane. Here sagittal plane also called as anterior-posterior plane. Here frontal plane also called as coronary plane. These are the another names for these planes. Okay. So location of the movement here will be having transverse plane, sagittal plane and frontal plane. So these are the planes. So in these planes, for this transverse plane, this is the plane, means it is the surface where the movement is happening. It is the surface on which surface the movement is happening. That is planes. And axis, it is a point where the movement is happening. So for transverse plane movement, what will be the axis means vertical axis. Transverse plane के लिए axis है vertical axis. This vertical axis. And sagittal plane का axis है frontal axis. And frontal plane का axis sagittal axis. So these are the planes and axis. These two topics are like, it's like a imagination only. We have to imagine where the movement is happening. Now we will come to the next point. In kinematics, that is direction of the movement. Direction of motion. So what is this direction of motion? Till now we know what is the type of the movement, and we know where is the location of the movement, which surface it will happening, on which point it is happening. Now we will see direction. What is the direction of the movement? Suppose, for example, we will take shoulder joint. So in this shoulder joint we will be having movements. First one, flexion, extension, then abduction and adduction, then internal rotation and external rotation. These are the 6 movements we are having in the shoulder joint. Suppose if we take flexion, extension, we will see now how it is going to be applicable. Flexion, extension. Now we have to see in which direction the movement is happening. Suppose what is shoulder flexion? This is shoulder flexion. 190, and then it is shoulder extension. These are the movements. Now we have to say this shoulder flexion, in which plane the movement is happening and on which axis movement is happening. So suppose now we are taking, see, this is our sagittal plane. It is going to divide the body into right and left. Suppose you have to, it is like imagination, you have to imagine. Suppose if I am doing flexion and keep, now for understanding, I am moving sagittal plane here, I am moving sagittal plane here. So now I am doing flexion movement, I am doing flexion of the shoulder joint. So this is the flexion, see, this is the flexion. On which surface the movement is happening? On which surface? Here, sagittal plane, sagittal plane. So flexion movement, what I am doing here, it is going to move on sagittal plane, the surface. So for flexion, plane is the sagittal plane. This is the sagittal plane. Suppose it will be backside also the sagittal plane. If I do extension, again here also it is moving on the surface. Which surface? Sagittal plane. So you have to understand that flexion, extension is going to happen in the sagittal plane. So for that we saw already sagittal plane के axis frontal axis, sagittal plane के axis frontal axis. Frontal axis, what is this mean? Again it is confusion. What is this axis means? It's very easy. Suppose here we are having sagittal plane, we are doing it on this surface plane here. What this axis means? We discussed axis means it is the point where the movement is happening. Where is our shoulder joint? It is here. It is here, right? So here we are having frontal plane. Frontal plane is going to divide the body into front and back. Front and back. So now imagine, you have to understand nicely. When we are doing flexion movement, it's happening sagittal plane. From which point it is happening? From which point? Here is the frontal plane, no? So that's why sagittal plane movement and frontal axis. Now we will see abduction, adduction. Shoulder joint abduction. See, this is our shoulder joint abduction movement. Here we will take board as example. So whenever we are doing abduction, see, now imagine this is like a frontal plane. It is going to divide the body into front and back. So if I am doing movement on the board, imagine this board as transverse plane. If I am doing movement, what is the surface for this movement? Here the surface is for abduction, adduction, frontal plane. Frontal plane is the surface. Axis will be sagittal axis. Clear? Now we will come to internal external rotation. Suppose now we will do here shoulder joint internal rotation and external rotation. So if we are doing internal and external rotation, imagine this is our transverse plane. So I am doing internal rotation on which surface? This transverse plane. On which surface? This transverse plane. So here internal external rotations, plane is transverse plane and axis is vertical axis. Clear? So wherever in body, complete body except thumb and ankle joint also. Okay, so now that we will see later. Almost all the synovial joints, flexion extension will happen in sagittal plane, abduction adduction will happen in frontal plane, IR internal rotation, external rotation, otherwise medial rotation, lateral rotations will happen in the transverse plane. So sagittal plane axis, frontal plane axis, sagittal axis, transverse plane axis, vertical axis, frontal plane axis, sagittal axis. This you have to remember. That's it. Now in this kinematics, last topic is magnitude of the movement. We discussed magnitude. Magnitude is nothing but speed. It is nothing but speed. How speed the movement is happening. That is magnitude. Suppose if I am doing, see, from this is my 90-degree shoulder flexion. If from 90 up to 180, if I move slowly, now my magnitude is less. If I do like this, now magnitude is more. So it is nothing but a movement or displacement. It is nothing but a movement or displacement in a particular time, with or without direction. Understand? It is nothing but magnitude of the movement is nothing but the movement or displacement of one object or two objects, whatever, the movement or displacement of object in a particular time, in 2 seconds time or 3 seconds time or maybe 1 minute, in a particular time, with or without direction. If it is going like this, now it is showing this direction. If it is not showing direction also, like this also magnitude. Here I can say, like here we are doing It's here segment is moving, mean displacing. It's with high magnitude. There is no proper direction. It's like infinity, some different directions and giving. That's the magnitude of the movement. It is going in. Magnitude of the movement. How to measure this? How to measure this? Here, this is one circle. This is one circle. If you divide circle into two halves, here 180, here 180. If we divide like this, this is 90, this is 90, 90, 90. So this 360 degrees, 360 degrees. Suppose your elbow joint is here. Suppose your elbow joint is here. This is your shoulder joint. This is your hand component. Imagine this is your shoulder joint. Imagine this is our shoulder joint. This is our elbow joint. This is our wrist joint. Suppose you are doing wrist flexion, mean elbow flexion from 0 degree to see 90 degree, 90 degree to 135, 90 degree to 135. So this is the normal range. This is the normal range. How much we can? Now this is neutral. That means 0 degree, 0 degree to 90, 90 degree to 135 or maybe 40. How much I can get? So this is elbow flexion movement. This is elbow flexion movement. This full elbow flexion movement. No. How to measure the magnitude of the movement? So now if I do movement, see I get slowly. This is slow magnitude. If I do faster, I get fast. How to measure? What is the point here? It's the point about time. It's the point about time. So how we can tell magnitude? How many degrees? How many degrees elbow is moving in a particular time? If I take 1 second times, if I take 1 second time to flex, see complete range. I got complete range. If I take 5 seconds to finish complete elbow flexion, see this is the movement. So how to measure? Here the point is how many degrees the movement is happening in a particular time. That is nothing but magnitude of the movement. Here time doesn't matter actually. Here matter is speed. How speed the movement is happening. That's the movement. And one more point we have to here we have to discuss. Suppose if I am doing like this movement slowly. So what is the elbow flexor? Biceps muscle. Here elbow flexor is biceps muscle. So if I am doing slowly, biceps muscle is working slowly. Biceps muscle is working slowly. If I do faster, biceps muscle will work fast. Biceps muscle will work fast. So it is nothing but it's about muscle force. That we will see kinetics. That we will see kinetics. Now come to the conclusion. Kinematics is nothing but the description of the movement. Kinematics is nothing but the description of the movement. It is the area where we are going to see the biomechanics of the human body. In this, whatever happening in our body, what we can do with our body joints, this is the stability and mobility. Stability we'll see later. Now mobility. In this mobility, we need some movements. In that movements, we have to see what are the types of the movements and then where is the location of that movement. In which plane the movement is happening, in which axis the movement is happening, that we'll see, and direction, in which direction the movement is happening, and then magnitude of the movement. What is the magnitude of that movement? So these four we have to see for each and every movement in the human body, in all joints. So this is about kinematics. Now second topic will come, that is the kinetics. We'll see it.